This is a Kershaw Kemp. Doing some liming with it to test out two things. Number one, I just did handle wrap on this because the handle had degraded significantly from some rather minor impacts earlier, so I wrapped it with some hockey tape. I just wanted to have a look at using that as a grip material. Secondly, I've been using another blade lately, and I had some problems with the edge rippling on this kind of wood, and I just wanted to run the Kershaw Kemp just to get a feel for its relative durability. The problem when doing this type of work is, unless the knives are of similar size and length, you can't even get similar impact strength, so you had to be really careful about making some kind of comparisons. But all I want to do now is just do the same sort of type of effort on the same type of wood, just to get a feel for the durability tolerances in a knife of about this size, which I think I got a decent handle on, versus a much larger knife with a two-handed grip. So I'm sort of looking for the hardest, sort of gnarliest type wood I can find here. This tree is a good example of it, very difficult to get in on it. The limbs are quite large, and the temperature is rather moderate today. It's probably around 4 degrees centigrade. It was around -2 yesterday, and it's winter time, so the wooding is getting a little bit hard to cut, so the penetration I'm getting here is rather low in comparison to what you'll see in videos in the middle of summer, where the wood will be a lot softer and a lot easier to cut. One thing that surprised me when watching these videos is it looks like in many times I'm putting almost no effort into the cuts. That really isn't the case, but I don't know, my perception on video is that it's a lot more lackadaisical. And the handle is already starting to be an issue. Essentially the glue was coming off the tape and coming into my hands, and my hand is starting to stick to the handle, and that sticking then breaks when I'm cutting and starting to get abrasive. So even after a few minutes, I've already determined that yeah, this is not going to work as a grip material at all. In general though, I really like this knife. I have severe issues with the way Kershaw handles customer service, and in particular Thomas Welk, who represents them on some forums and online, which is why I'd never recommend them support their products. But irregardless of my feelings towards Kershaw, and irregardless of my feelings towards Thomas Welk, this knife is really performing solidly. It has a curved blade shape, which some people don't like, but I think it has advantages in that it gives you different areas of the blade to work with and you can utilize. The steel and tempering seems to be almost perfect. I think you could go a little bit thinner on the profile if you didn't want to do this type of cutting, but to make a knife that can stand up to even sort of knotty type woods and very hard small diameter limbing, this knife I think is, hitting a sort of sweet spot on the cusp. It's designed really well for a hard working woods knife is the way I would describe it. Not a precision cutting tool, but it definitely isn't overbuilt by any stretch of the imagination. It's just where it needs to be to handle this kind of rough woodwork. The only negative I would say about it is that the handle overlay, that sort of craton material that they use, it's just a very thin skim over a plastic shell, and it very easily gets torn and ripped, as I noted in an earlier video. There's also some issues with the case. The case scrapes against the edge and will automatically dull it, so that's a bit of an issue. But in terms of raw performance, very solid blade for its size and for its price, makes a pretty decent statement. And this is why hockey tape proved to be a complete fail. Even after a few minutes, most of the adhesive has come off. It's gone to my hand, I'm sticking to it, it's breaking off. It's just not a fun time cutting. This is the tape that I prefer to use. It's sold by Lee Valley. Unfortunately, it's green, which means it's very difficult to spot if you're in the woods. but it doesn't stick to anything except itself. So there's no real adhesive in it, and it has a decent sort of texture. So I wouldn't call it overly rough, but it's definitely not slippery. So all I'm going to do now is just overlay it on top of the hockey tape. There's no real need to take the hockey tape off. And again, it just sticks to itself. It doesn't stick to anything else. Now, the only weakness, and again, because it doesn't stick to anything, is that the edges will curl up readily, because again, they're not sticking to the material underneath it. So generally what you want to do is put the tape a bit beyond the area that you're going to grip, because if you make contact with the leading edges of it, you will peel them back and they can sort of start being abrasive, but it's not a big deal to sort of go over them with a bit again. So going a bit forward on that now, coming back, and that's sort of what the grip will look like. And it adds a little bit of cushioning, not very much. And it would be nice if it came in sort of like a bright pink color, which would make it easier to identify. And that's where I do something really stupid, because I just put the glue right back on the handle, because I didn't bother to clean my hand off before I started doing it. But that's no big issue. I'll just go over that with another layer of guard tape, just to make sure the adhesive doesn't contact my hand.